person in that lacquer role, this is when we can explode and go to that next level. And that really excites me because the rest of the team, for me, is looking good.
You said it there, and for me, I look at the strikers. Like if I had my way, we'd be bringing in 4 strikers. Just to add on what you said with the Xhaka and Lacazette specialists, I think we'll be happy with one of each. I think you kind of need 2 because, as you know, football's a squad game. And I look at us with strikers. We need a striker who scores goals. Everyone knows that. Arteta knows that. But in line with the modern game, we need link-up play. Now, if I just look at Lacazette, now obviously we don't want the same player, but goals clearly are not necessarily why you're in the team. So with that being said, could you buy a top level striker and then maybe get a young one that might not necessarily score goals per se straight away, but what Laka does, he could kind of give you that, because as you said with Lukaku, they spent 90 million. It hasn't worked out. They've seen in a matter of months there's a lack of quality. But where you can make out where goals might be a problem, if the bar's even more on the floor, can you find a more experienced one? Before I forget, I wanted to ask you, as we keep talking about squad depth, what have you made of Cedric, really? You know, he had a decent game up until probably the goal we conceded. He did have a good game, a better game, arguably, and a more important game against Wolves. What have you made of him? I know your conclusion on a player isn't going to change, but credit where due. I think I have to give him that as well.
Absolutely. In my post-match analysis after the Brentford game, I did call him out for credit. I thought he deserved credit. He did well. And we know he's not the guy. Yeah, none of us were happy we signed him as such, and none of us are excited to see him. But all we can hope for is that he's not going to be the guy that does it for 38 games, right? But when you're called upon, just be solid. Do the simple things. You don't need to win the game for us.
Reliable.
Yeah, you just need to be reliable, make it difficult for your opposite number to get past you and do what they want to do and be more of a containing player. I thought he did that and a little bit more against Brentford, where we were unlucky from his cross/shot. We weren't awarded a penalty, for example. I think he did absolutely fine. So as far as I'm concerned, I even though he's not the profile and the caliber of player that I really want at the club, I've got no personal animosity against him. And therefore, I'm really happy when he goes out and does well and releases some of that pressure that's on his neck in a way, because of the fact that he's probably aware of the fact that he's not the most fashionable player. He's not loved like a Tomiyasu or whatever it might be. So, yeah, credit to him, man. We need to turn around and say, well done and long may it continue.
I mean, I'm with you. It's like you just have to give credit to where a man's due, especially for me at this time of the season where you kind of need consistencies. You notice from my language, I'm kind of more risk averse than I normally have. I want to see a bit more consistency. I feel as much as I love Saka and Smith Rowe and all these young players, if I need anything from certain players, it needs to be the experienced ones, whether you're going to play 1 game, 2 games in Cedric's case, or from now to the end of the season. And when we're on the pitch, I need to see you lot, organizing yourselves. And I saw a bit of that. I feel in the Brentford game, if we're looking at improvements, as you kind of said, we probably can't do it without new recruits, but could we kill off that game in the first 10 minutes when like Liverpool or City might do? And in the second half, when it's going right, the fans are singing your names, everything's going well, just keeping those high standards up. So I was impressed with Cedric. We can't talk about Brentford and not give, special shout to Odegaard, because, we've been gassing up Odegaard for a while, and it's like the world is starting to see it now. There's a long way to go. Even Arteta is talking about his captaincy capabilities, and he's having a good game on the pitch. So where are you at with Odegaard now? With
Odegaard, I feel like what he does, it's very good. It keeps the game ticking over. He's sort of like that. In fact, on Arsenal social media, they call it the orchestrator. They release a little video with some classical music, and he's the orchestrator of that. Look, he is. I used to liken Mesut Ozil to like a grand artiste, where he's like all of these like Beethoven and Picasso, and like his strokes and the way he does things was literally art. If you put paint on his studs, and just watch Mesut Ozil cover the picture, it would be a masterpiece.
It'd be a masterpiece, 100%.
Yeah, when like on his good days, not always, but on his good days, that's how he looked to me. It was just magnificent strokes of the ball and movement and stuff. Odegaard isn't quite there, because I think it was 76th minute of the game. He had the opportunity to get an assist. I can't remember who was there on his left-hand side to square it to. And in the end, it was like a really, really tame shot. Odegaard does a lot of really good work without that final killer finish or killer bit of creativity. And when that comes, I think that at that point, we'll all be able to kind of turn around and say, this is why we were praising him because we always saw everything but that final piece.
That moment.
Yeah. So I feel like, you know, in the 2/3 of the pitch, in a way, or let's say, for example, we divide the pitch up between like our 18-yard box, their 18-yard box, and the rest. In the rest of the pitch, he does brilliant work. He doesn't need to do much in our 18-yard box defensively. He doesn't need to do much right now, he's not got that killer instinct in the attacking 18-yard box.
He's in
and
that
that's
middle
the
area
bit that he needs to unlock for me and be a bit more ruthless and clinical. Other than that, I'm a big fan of what he does all around the pitch and how he keeps the game ticking over, how he's got the ability to play one-touch football, know where people are before the ball comes to him and keep that ticking over. And I think he does a really good job there. But just that directness, that killer instinct is what I feel like is lacking.
I definitely agree with you. And I think similar to what you were saying, I think another number 8 can take him and Saka and Smith Rowe beyond what they can do personally to another level. I think it's no coincidence these players score more goals or look more dangerous or have better highlights when they're closer to the opposition's goal rather than dropping down to the halfway line and things, which is a consequence of our midfield pivot. I feel Odegaard, one thing that I keep saying, it goes against him. He's a pretty boy, blonde hair, blue eyes. He doesn't fit the image of what you would say as a leader and things like that. I don't want him necessarily to be the leader I'm looking to. I want you to lead by example and things like that. But I'm happy with him, man. I'm happy with him. What did you make of, again, I don't know if you've seen, but Aubameyang's been awarded a hat-trick for Barcelona. Where you at with that, man?
Yeah. Listen, he's got the hat-trick. I'm really happy for him. I'm really, really happy for Aubameyang because even though there's elements of his personality that I don't like, because ultimately he didn't do everything that he could in order to just continue doing the job for the fans. Ultimately, I'm sure that he could have apologized. He could have made a public apology. He could have done whatever it takes to get back in the team. And his own pride, his own ego prevented him from doing that. I don't think I'd be any different in that situation. But ultimately, you know, all I ever wanted him to do was bang in goals for Arsenal. And in the last few months he was at the club, he wasn't doing that. And that I find frustrating. But overall, that's not the story of his time at Arsenal for me. For many others, it might be. But for me, it was a moment against Tottenham, Valencia, Chelsea, Man City. Those were the Aubameyang moments that I remember, right? Now, I always had faith that when you look at the top goal scorers of the last decade, I'm not talking about a short space of time here, I'm talking about the last 10 years. It's Messi, Ronaldo, and then Suarez, Benzema, Lewandowski, Aubameyang. Like, these are top players, and he belongs there. So I was never worried, even when he wasn't finishing off for Arsenal before he got dropped, that it was a permanent thing. I always expected he'd go and score goals wherever he went next, and I'm happy to see him get the hat-trick. Obviously, the third goal of the hat-trick itself kind of...
Yeah. Pedri got credited to him, but, the narrative's better than the facts, really.
Yeah, but the first goal was a brilliant finish.
Typical Aubameyang.
High, near post, ruthless, powerful finish. Second one, Aubameyang has made a career of being in the right place at the right time, 2-yard tap in, but that's exactly what you need. It's what we want Lacazette to do. So those goals were vintage Aubameyang. And then he got the rub of the green. And I'm happy that he got the rub of the green because that's it. Go and excel. Go and prove yourself yet again. And because he always has to. Like, he leaves, every time he leaves a place, he leaves with sort of like a bit of a negative cloud over his head.
Never clean,
yeah. Prove himself. So, yeah, best of luck to him, man. I like the guy.
I mean, as you said it there, man. I feel one thing I don't like, but we can't necessarily control it. Whether he does good or bad, whether Arsenal do good or bad, we're going to hear whisperings of how it is on the other side, rather than just let this beautiful story end. It is what it is. Gio's asked a question, and it kind of went over my head. Where are you at with the whole captain's band fiasco with Granit Xhaka and Eddie Nketiah and whatever, where the Brentford game was concerned?
I completely missed it when I was at the ground. Quite often, especially in light of everything that's happened with Arsenal captaincy, I'm quite curious about what's going to happen. Oh, Laka's gone off. He's wearing the armband. Who's it going to go to? What's going to happen? I want to see it go to Tierney, so I would have been looking out for that. But on this occasion, completely didn't even notice the fact that it went to Nketiah and Xhaka said no. And I was talking to Tom Canton, who does the TGT talk, and he was basically saying it's an absolute non-issue. The only reason Xhaka said no is because he wanted to concentrate on the passage of play at that time. And I said to Tom myself that I don't buy that because, it's a 1-second job. You just hoist it up and you move on. But he made the point, and this is where I feel like there's more of a point, that Xhaka has accepted it in the past since everything's happened with him. So why all of a sudden now is he kind of saying like, no, I don't want it?
Right.
So I don't really know if it's a non-story or if there is something to it, but yeah, I guess we'll find out. Now more people will be looking. Next time Laka gets subbed off, more people will be looking. And apparently the intention was that it would go to Tierney, and it did go to Tierney in the end, which hopefully is a positive sign for next season.
I mean, I just assumed that Eddie Nketiah got his bearings wrong, didn't know who to give it to and things. On one hand, that was my first reaction because I've been like that playing Sunday League. You just want to focus. Then I thought how you feel in the sense of it takes 30 seconds. I do think certain fans that are moaning at him, the very fact that Xhaka would be wearing the armbands enough for them to just lose it. So there's no winning in that. I feel broadly, if it was, it's not that I don't care for it. I just feel it is a non-story, but I think broadly, maybe it's a cultural shift at Arsenal. We all know captaincy isn't just one sort of guy now, it's everyone. But on the other hand, to the fact that Eddie doesn't really know who to give it to, and coming off the bench is your thing. This is something you should kind of know. For me, kind of highlights maybe a broader issue, but I just think it's what us Arsenal fans are doing. There's got to be, I wouldn't say negativity, I wouldn't say there's nothing in it, but it just feels like we always, rather than focus on not keeping the clean sheet, that's what I'd rather the story be. I just think we're acting up a bit, but it is what it is. As we move towards this Wolves game, bro, again, the first question I want to ask